Okay, we are live. Finally, a little late. My deepest apologies. Usually, I'm not that late, so I have to do apologize. Sorry about that. So I can hear myself, so that's good. Audio working. No time to set up lights. But thank you so much to everyone. Thank you for being here, for being patient. It's going to be an interesting one. So basically, we had today's like a national holiday. We had a barbecue. It's our 4th of July, basically. And we had barbecue and fun stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to schedule it for, 15, like a little later in the day. And then I decided, okay, let's go 15 minutes later. That wasn't that wasn't good enough. And yeah, so sorry about that. Should have left earlier too, but you know how it is. From the moment you say it's time to go, it takes like couple of minutes. Marjorie, thank you. Here we go. You'll get your Liron fix now. So I'm gonna pull up the video because it's gonna be an interesting live stream. I never did anything like that. That we're actually gonna be reacting to a video, so that's fun. Now I'm gonna try and make this again, fair use and all of that. It's not my content. We're reacting to a different video. Some channels are fully based on doing these kinds of reaction videos, of course, but that's not me. But I will try to adhere to fair use. Basically, it means that my live stream is not a replacement to actually watching the video of the painting process by Joseph Zbukvic. Of course, it's not a replacement. It's a different experience. Let's move this to another window. Let's do this. Just want to put this on full screen. And then let me try and see if I can share my tab with the video. And you let me know if it works. I don't even know if I'm going to, let's see, Chrome tab. Will I be able to find it if it's not in my, so I think it's this one. Yeah, okay. So you let me know if you can see this properly. I paused the video, but just let me know. And in the meantime, as you're letting me know that it works, I'm gonna go over some comments real fast. Let's see here. So yes, Hank, I got it. Thank you so much. I was gonna reply to you because we were in family stuff. I wanted to reply as soon as I'm back. I got it. Thank you so much. It was the right email address. I don't know what happened the last time, but yes, thank you so much appreciated. And hey, Hanny, how are you doing? Hey, Mark, thank you so much. Hey, Nancy. Hey, Chris. Hey Marty, hope everything is going well. Thank you, Secrets to Design. I tried not to be too much in a rush. May actually had to take over the car and the parking, and I just ran inside the house because finding a parking spot takes a while. Now it's the worst time really to look for a parking spot, but yeah. So hopefully she has an easy time. Hey Charnel, how are you doing? Hey Lollipop. The face says it all. Skip this one. Um, I'm not sure what it means, but yeah, sorry. Hey Laura. Yeah, everyone watched this video. So this is a very, very popular video. Hey Jill, how are you doing? Thank you so much, John. Yeah, everyone watched this video. It's a super popular one. So I'm gonna push the play button. I'm curious to hear. Do you hear the video's audio?
What colors? I think that you're using.
We'll let it
Schmincke,
run for a few seconds.
That's correct.
Okay.
The one
I can actually test it out myself. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I can actually test this out myself. How do I pause this? Or maybe I'll just open it up on YouTube. Let's see here. 1 second. Here I am. I just want to test because it's the first time I'm doing this kind of a thing. Yeah, okay. The audio is coming through. That's good. Okie doke. So basically, I thought I'd kind of go over the process and kind of give a review. Of course, it's not going to be like a critique because it's Joseph Zbukvic, the master. Now, I am going to mute the video because we don't really need the audio so much, but you get to see his setup, of course. And he's just super incredible. So what he's doing first is he's showing how he's editing the photo to make it more interesting. And if you've watched the video, you know. So I'm going to go a little forward here. Okay, yeah. So when he's putting the photo down, it's a really nice photo, right? But there's always things to be improved. And that's always how I think about it. I don't work on over photos, but this is a great way of doing it. The first time I saw it, I was like, so let's watch a bit of what he does here. He likes to bring things to focus and have that depth, and having that white on the road really helps that. Playing around with the cards. One thing that I always try to help people relax when whenever they paint or they're stressed. You can, if you're willing to use opaque paint, you can basically get away with anything, and you can create whatever you want, because you can always just stack up some opaque paint. And darkening is much easier, right? So if you're layering a highlight on top, and then some kind of a shadow underneath, I don't know, it's just a really good way to create stuff over an existing layer. Even if it's watercolor, you can do a lot that way. So the way of doing that's really genius. Now, one thing that's really cool about this is, and let me go back just to the final design he did for the photo, is you really have now everything. You have the foreground, which was missing in the original one, right? The foreground having a car really close. And let me tell you, very often it's good, I brought a towel with me because I ran. I don't want to be too sweaty on camera. But one thing that happens to me often is I'll take a picture, and the picture looks really good, but it has nothing in the foreground. So there's no, like, if you stand across the street for something interesting, you just take a flat picture, so you see the street like this, there's nothing to create that sense of depth. And one thing I learned is, when I take the photo, to try and have it so that I have something in the foreground. And Joseph Zbukvic talks about it a lot, of having a very clear foreground, middle ground, background. So that's how he achieves it. If it's not there, invent it. I try to take the photo in a way that will have it ready from the beginning, but if you don't, you can always add it in. One thing I do recommend people do is borrow an actual element from the distance, bring it forward, or even use a few photos if you want to, but you can just borrow, you can just borrow elements. Yeah, okay, so you can see when I do right click. So now he's starting, of course, with the actual process. And the way, it's so funny, the way he manages that wash is incredible. The drawing is really neat too. I love seeing these, kind of sketchy lines drawn freely with the pencil. I find it really fun. He inspired me to paint a little more loosely. Of course, him and Alvaro Castanet both work this way. Now, I will say this. I think in the beginning, I definitely needed more pencil lines, right? It's not look at this guy. He's such a charmer. Joseph Sweet. He's such a cool person, I have to say. The way he's hosting Graeme in his studio is so cool. Like, they're super friendly and everything. It's just really neat. Now, and then if you look up his demos, some demos, he's like, shh, I need peace and quiet. Okay, there's an ad. Nice. High content creators. So so let's do this. I'm going to remove the screen share. I'm going to play the ad on my end, and then I'm going to skip it, and then we're going to continue. Okay, good. Sorry about that. It's going to happen from time to time. And let me know if you have any questions. I didn't even say much yet, but yeah. One more thing I made sure to do is the link to the video is the first link in the description. So you can, find the original video in the description box if you want to watch it. For the 5 people who haven't watched the video here, feel free to do that. Now, the way he mixes, so here's the thing. One thing that I find very confusing for myself included, not just other people that I see this with, is a lot of grays can be very confusing. Don't be misled by the fact that he has 5 grays. He knows what he's doing, and he knows just how yellow a gray is, or how purple a gray is, or how orange, and how that works out. So the nuances really become important. It's not just a gray. And the technique here is really cool. So I think it would be really hard to achieve this smooth of a wash on a hot press paper with this relatively small brush, even though the paper is at an angle, right? But yeah, he says, I just remember he adds a bit of darker and darker, a bit more paint as he goes along. That's actually a staple of his big paintings. You can kind of see the layering of, several passings of the brush over them, which is really cool. Now, the way he does it is by using paper white. And people ask me that a lot. Should you use a paper white? What is there any reason not to make your light slide a paper white? And honestly, there isn't. If you have something that's well lit, you can make that, the paper white. So that's what he does. I find that this is very motivating for the first wash. You just feel like everything's connecting super well when you do that. If I go over everything, sometimes I find it ruins some of the impression. Now, one thing I will say about this wash, there's so much to handle here. If you're if you're gonna start doing wet and wet now, it's very tough. So I think he, on purpose, he doesn't take it too far right now. It's just those directional lines, right, lifting with a very dry brush, but nothing too far than that. It would have been really, really hard to do, I think. Now, as for the first wash, I love his approach of like, I'm just making the mark. That's what he says, I remember. First off, he says he has to imagine it in his mind and everything, but then he's making a mark and he's kind of trying to figure out, okay, is it the right value? Is it the right? Let's give the man the stage.
I do what I call a test. I just make a mark.
So there's gonna be ads on this live stream because of the music, probably. But yeah, sorry about that. I forgot that there's tons of music.
As if it is too light when it's not. And I start with this little.
So here's the thing. I love this approach of making the mark, and then you can fix it if you want to, right? Because that's one thing people are worried about. Let me just get rid of my Photoshop. Slows down the computer. A lot of the, let's say, obsessiveness over making the perfect mix before you ever touch the paper, that's usually not as beneficial. You have to sometimes just put something in there, right? So just something to have in mind. Let me know if it runs slow, because I see it slowly. I don't know, maybe I'll stop sharing for a few moments, or maybe it's my entire computer is gonna crash. Not sure. Not sure what the issue is. Let me check for a second. Okay, I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. First time I'm doing this kind of a screen share. Now, one thing that I learned from him, from many other people, is that big shapes. Look at how this entire wash he's doing in one go. And that's, you don't have to do things that way. And depending on the desired result, right, you may do it differently. But I find that this way of doing things is very important, just to make it simpler on the viewer. And this also eliminates any chances that you end up with a very fragmented painting with lots of mixes of gray that don't relate, right? Because he's really playing on the nuances of grays here. The grays in the back are a little cooler and lighter, and then as he moves forward, it's a little more brown, so warm, and a bit darker, definitely darker, right? Now, because the focal point here is going to be more to the front, the cars, the background has to play its role as a background. So you do get a bit of wet and wet, right? And work inside that. But overall, you see it's one wash, one continuous wash. And that's something that when doing plein air is very hard, but when you work from a photo, you have to learn to see it this way. And this is actually something I see all the time with students. They have a hard time figuring out, okay, if I take a few steps back and I squint and I see this entire thing, and especially in this kind of a foggy day, right? You see the entire thing as one kind of smooth wash shape that connects together. I think that it's just much more, first off, it's easier to paint. And I think it just leads to, I guess, better results, right? And yeah, all of this touching and scratching, that's a really fun kind of thing. I try to do that from time to time. It's actually not as easy as he makes it appear. But yeah, his fingerprints are there. Let me fast forward a bit. I don't know how long this stream is going to be. Maybe we'll run through the process fast and then we'll just chill for a while. Let's see what's interesting. Yeah, okay. So this is actually the coolest part of the video. So we have to watch this. As soon as he gets to the shapes that are actually important, then he starts. Look at the green on that tram. These nuances, you think, oh, it's just a gray. It's not just a gray. He thought of everything here. Even if it's not consciously, he thought of it in all of the hundreds and thousands of paintings he did before, right? Don't forget that all the paintings you do feed into your current paintings. This is why I remember a time when with every painting I finish, it would just be, I'd feel like, okay, I'm much better than I was the previous one. I don't know if I feel the same way now, but maybe to some extent, So let me see here. let's run this a bit further. So okay, this is something I have to talk about. First off, this looks insanely beautiful, but let's go ahead and pause the video in the right time, somewhere around here. Yeah. So this is something a lot of people struggle with. Again, if you can see if you turn the photo black and white, or if you squint your eyes and you see something as one shape, don't try and draw each and every small detail. There is an underlying theme under the shapes, under the headlights, under the grills or the different details. There is one thing that unifies it all. I know the grills are darker. I know some of the headlights are lighter. I know there are some nuances, but you have to learn to be able to simplify it this way. And of course you don't have to paint like this, right? And I'm working right now on a painting from Morocco that's not like this. And this gap doesn't even make sense in a car in this angle. I think there shouldn't be a gap, but it looks so good, right? But in any case, if you can simplify it, why not? But the challenge, I think, is to be able to see it that way, right? Which is why I always say, turn the photo black and white, use the posterize feature, right? Turn it into few values so you can actually see it clearly. And this cool gimmick of putting in that almost opaque paint down into the wet wash and have it flow, that's just beautiful. It's another thing I see a lot of people mess up. It's actually not that hard on a technical level. What he has there is a wash that is relatively wet, and all my chat disappeared. That sucks. Oh, here we go. Okay, the first wash he put for the car is fairly wet, and the paint is thick, but it still melts into it. Very often I see this effect where the taillights are darker than the actual dark of the car. That's very common because people are scared to go dark enough. So another cool thing to have in mind. Now he's talking about that tunnel.
A lovely way of making kind of like a tunnel to look.
I watched this video so many times, I remember everything. And that really creates a depth with the buildings in the background. One more thing I will say, remember that not first wash, but the second wash for the buildings. Look at how the buildings themselves are sharp. The right side is sharp, the building in the background is sharp, but their transition is smooth, and the transition from ground to sky is smooth. And that's of key importance. That's something I always forget. Just to have a balance between the hard shapes and the soft shapes. This brings, sometimes, I don't know if you had this experience where the painting looks better before you finished it. Maybe you did 2 washes and it looks so good, and then you add another one and it ruins something. Because there is a magic to when the focal point is very clear. I would experience this a lot with my car paintings. I would put the car in, and then I'm like, should I add a background? Should I not add a background? Before I add the background, the car looks awesome. It's really, really cool. It is, just it stands out. It looks bold. As soon as I add a background, it suddenly looks like the magic disappeared. The balance is off. So he is a master of preserving that balance. By the way, let me know in the chat if you're interested in more of these. I have no idea. I'm just kind of winging it. I enjoy watching. And look at how there's yellows in the... Okay. I hit the space button on my StreamYard. Wait. Look at this. There is actually yellows in the tree here. Right here. Right? Can you see this? There's yellows and greens in there. So the grays are very nuanced. They're very nuanced. Don't let that mislead you. People try and tackle, they try to paint like Joseph Zbukvic haphazardly, and it's just, there's so much more to it. And we didn't even begin to talk about his control of the brush and how he puts those branches in. They actually look very organic and very random in their patterns. There's just so much that goes into that, But yeah, I'm actually curious to hear if this kind of a thing is interesting to you, because I have no idea. Again, I'm doing it for the first time, and I'm really a person who enjoys watching reaction videos. But yeah, let me know. Let's see here. 1 second. Yeah. Okay. By the way, the chat, I don't know if the chat is stuck or I'm just imagining things. So if you can write something, and we'll see. Now, these lines are also very beautiful, I think, very helpful in creating that sense of depth. If you can tie in the foreground and background. One thing I will say about this is notice how he's very deliberate about a lot of things, because he painted this scene multiple times, right? So he knows what he's doing. He actually knows what he's doing, where he's striving towards, and you know the effect he's after. And the reason I say this is because you have the lines on the street, right? And you have the lines up top. And look at the interesting effect that happens here. So the very first wash, he did that lifting and creating an effect of you know, some sense of depth. And that is created by light on dark. The road is slightly darker and there are light lines. Look at the sky. You have dark lines over a light sky for those tram electric lines. So that's, you know, really a huge thing. And had he not planned this out from start to finish, you wouldn't get this result. So it's not a mistake, you know, it's not a fluke, it's not luck. That's one thing that's important to have in mind, you know. And yeah, thank you so much. Okay, now I see your comments. I don't know, it was weird. Maybe just no one wrote in the chat. I never know if people just don't write. Now he's wetting the paper, right, to do this effect of pouring the paint in, letting it drop. Now the paper needs to be really wet for this. To get flow, actual flow, like what he's getting right now, you need a paper to be very, very wet. And then you have to come back with very thick paint, so it shows, right? But the thing is, again, because the paper is so, and he has to help it out to go down even more, because the paper is so so wet, you know that it will start drying a little lighter. So that's a good thing. This is another tricky effect, getting these, you know, reflections in the rain. But you have to understand, again, he's doing these kinds of scenes for decades. So there's a lot of things, a lot of experience behind it. Let's look at some of the comments. Yes, happy. It's interesting, Barbara. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Suzala. Thank you, Hank. Somesh, happy to hear. Hey. And Robin. John, thank you. Barbara, yeah, awesome. Aurora says, hi, Liron, thank you for everything you do. This video is very interesting and helpful. Do you think you could do one on the Bulgarian painter, Dimitar Davidov? I'm actually not familiar with this artist. So let me put this and do a screen capture so I remember to check it out later. Look at Graeme. What a wholesome guy. I love this series. It's so good. Let's see if we can maybe let's go back a bit. Don't forget about the Virgin ad. Let's see here. The studio itself looks really, really cool. Varun, this was amazing. I have a different take on reaction videos now. Really? What? So you don't like them? Because I really like them. Okay, I'll check him out. Yes, all wet and wet. Cool. I will definitely check him out. This I actually can relate to, all of these small trinkets and stuff that he collects from the past. That's really fun. And I think they're going to show some of his kind of montage of his paintings soon. So a fireplace. I wish that would have been awesome. Oh, the sketchbooks, the almighty sketchbooks. This you actually don't get to see. And I don't see a lot of his sketchbooks. He has a bit of it in his one of his DVDs that I bought. But this is like, look at this thing. The levels he achieves just in the sketchbooks. Yeah, I paused it like at the worst moment ever. Let's do a bit of a deep dive. Okay, so people, right? Practicing doing people. That's fascinating. He has the receipts too from that time. That's funny. €5. That's fun. So you see, he can tackle a lot of subjects, right? It's not just foggy scenes and stuff like that. He knows how to draw on location, from direct observation. A person who reaches these levels, you know, he's not doing just cityscapes. Not to say that cityscapes are necessarily easy, but they are easier than portraits, honestly. Look at this scene on the right. And I think he also said that it's kind of a crappy non-watercolor paper, but he still uses it, Artists use whatever they can. Look at this street scene on the left side. That's so cool. With the windows and everything. Of course, the portraits are awesome too. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so there are a couple of works. I love that. So the thing I talked about, right, about how Joseph Zbukvic uses overwork in his paintings, that's a really interesting thing. And by the way, I'm not even sure that's his work, but one of the things I noticed, he's really not scared to dig deeper into a wash and to go at it again and to do wet and wet and to lift and to go back again. And I think a lot of it adds the charm, and not scared also to come back with water and let them kind of run and create sort of effect. And it's all very contained within the big shapes, right? That's one thing we talked about in that video. It's all very well contained within the big shapes. As long as the big shapes are clear, all of the mess inside them is just, you know, details. It's just details and fun kind of things to look at. And you can include as many as you wish, right? This is another staple of his, you know, the all of these scenes of meadows, cows, etc. The trees are so light. If you look at, like, there we go. So it's dark here, down here, and then as you go up, look at how light gray it is, and it's not blue. These colors are very natural. These are colors you'd actually find in nature. You'll find all of these nuanced grays that have a bit of red in them and a bit of blue. It is just watching this, like just commenting on this video makes me want to pause and paint. One more thing I want to direct your attention to: look at how the edges of the trees have this kind of yellow pastel glow to it, kind of hinting that the light comes from the back, and it's also resting on these parts of, I don't know what you call these bumps in the trunk. So the bumps also catch these highlights, right? And the cows, you know, I think he did all of the highlights there with opaque paint. So don't worry about, you know, Alvaro Castanet always says, don't compromise the quality of the wash just for the sake of, skipping some highlights. It's not as important. And I can relate for sure. It can be very hard to get paint around everything like that, which is why I like the simple scene. So here's an example of one. I wanted to just wait for it to pause. This is, you know, it's not an easy painting, of course, I don't think so, but it's a simple scene. There's an entire dark backdrop with some details in it, and the two chefs, and he's a genius for, you know, I think he's the first person who actually made these scenes what they are. I'm sure people painted kitchen scenes before, but he really made it like a genre, from what I can tell. And it's a great subject when you think about it. You know, dark background, white clothes, white hats for the chefs and cooks and everything. The fiery red for the you know, the stove. It's a genius scene, and the way the fire goes up, like the steam comes up from the. It's really magical. And if you enjoy, I guess, making a lot out of the wash, then it's that you can get a lot done, just you know, in terms of, you know, wet and wet, lifting, splashing, and all of that, as long as you preserve, again, the shapes, the overall shapes and how they look. I don't know, this is just a beautiful process to watch. And of course, you can go back with opaque paint, get any highlights you miss. This is another genre of his I love, which is landscapes, but a bit from above. He has a few from what do you call this, Florence area and Tuscany, that I think are stunning, like some of the best paintings I've seen. This really is very inspiring. And one more thing to have in mind, he's probably playing around with the contrasts, you know, the contrast between the ground and the cows, for example, or the fences. It may not be as strong, but he's making, and the buildings, walls, and shadow on the ground, they may not be as strong of a contrast, but he's enhancing it. You know, he's making it whatever he wants. Now, there are actually two things I want to say about this specific kind of scene. First off, on a technique level, this isn't easy to achieve, right? To get the effects to look the way they look. You need confidence, but you also need to know what you're doing, and a very nuanced control of the medium. But not only that, even if you master the techniques, you need to know where you even want to place stuff, right? So knowing to build the scene in an interesting way is a completely different challenge in its own right. Knowing where to place the trees, right? Everything here is deliberate. I think, of course, it's inspired by something, but I think he did make some changes. Another genius with that is Chen Chung Wei. He's really a master of placing things at uneven distances. Nothing repeats itself. You know, it works perfectly in all angles, and that's just incredible. So even if you master the techniques, you still need to know, like, composition. Where do I even decide to place stuff? Because some things are your decision. But yeah, look at this guy. I know Graeme is complimenting him, and he's like, "Oh, thank you." He's like being all. Did I hear a voice? Okay, he's being all humble because that's who he is, you know. But yeah, I'm gonna pause it and look at some of your comments. What's up, pessoal? Okay, let's continue. Hello, Liron. Good to hear your views. Thank you so much, Alessandro. Let's see. Okay. Marjorie says, I will have to rewatch because I missed the last 15 minutes. Yeah, sorry. My Sheltie barked to let me know the green heron and unusual sighting was back at the koi pond. Oh, that's funny. I didn't get a picture and out of breath. Varun says, yeah, the only one I saw earlier was someone laughing at something stupid. I guess context matters. Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we're good. So let's see if we can kind of dig okay, the car, of course. If you look at this scene, for example, just look at the behind the car, right? Look at how blue that background is. But you have to understand it's not really blue, it's a gray blue. We have a tendency to exaggerate these colors. If you enjoy that, I enjoy that. So I'll exaggerate them on purpose sometimes on mistake too. But if you enjoy it, why not? But yeah, let's see what else. Look at all these details on the car. That's honestly a perfect painting. I should paint this. Some other scenes. These are like so good. All the fog and mist and whatever coming up from the buildings and everything. Let's see some other paintings. This turns into just a painting masters episode. By the way, if you have any and look at this. Okay, wait, I have to show you two things about the boats and about the cars. But in the meantime, I just want to say, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them. We can turn this into like questions about technique and stuff like that, because we're pretty much done with the video. I am for making this live stream a little shorter because it's a little later than usual, but I can go for a little while. So definitely let me know if you have any questions, not necessarily even related to this video. The boats here are, again, how much can you simplify the scene and still maintain the impression, the realistic impression or the impressionistic impression, whatever it is. In this example, what's a boat? It's just this shape, right? A shape meets the water and then some colors up top. That's all you need. And if you can teach yourself to do that, you'll go a long way, because there is a lot of value in the ability to paint the same subject multiple ways. What do I mean? One way is maybe you try to be as literal as you can and you work on it for an hour, 2, 3, just the boat, right? Not a scene, just the boat. And you try to really get every detail of it. Then you do another iteration where you're a bit looser, but you're still trying to really follow it to the T. Then another one that's very loose, and then one that's almost an abstract, right? It's very useful to have the skill of using different levels of, think of it almost like a volume knob. How much simplification do you have? More or less, you can play around with it. Why is that important? Because you may want to paint this same boat in the foreground, in the background, and then you have to put fewer details to keep it simple, or just because you don't have as much room. So it's a very useful kind of piece of knowledge. The same goes for cars, and this is what I wanted to show you in the next painting. Again, this pattern of a car is just the windshield, and then there's a bit of a light area on the hood, and then dark. Front is dark with 2 headlights, maybe the grills or something in the front's a little dark, but it's a very simplified version of a car. A car doesn't look like that, but when you take a few steps back, you squint your eyes, because he got the values accurate, and maybe the colors are close too, but probably he changed them a lot. Maybe not this one, but a different one. Because the value scheme is accurate, it looks good, and more than good, it looks realistic. Okay, so you can acquire this knowledge of how much can you simplify while still maintaining a sense of realism and the essence of the subject. Same for the roofs of the building, the way they meet the shadowy walls, that's just genius. Let me see what you're saying in the chat. Oh, I love this. I love everything here, but this top roof, that's so nice. And the birds, of course, to add some motion. Look at the turquoise he uses for the windows right here. That's really beautiful. Paula says, I know you've made changes to your work schedule. Is this going to be the new time for your live stream? No, it's not. It's just because it's a special day today. It's probably going to stay the same time unless you tell me it's bad, and then I'll change it. I'll probably change it if you want to, because a lot of people wanted me to go later or different days. So maybe we can do that. Let me know. So let me know if you want me to do that. I'm gonna take a sip. Let me know what you think about this time. Design diaries. How to work on the content of my art. How to make a statement about the situation of society with my art. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's rough. So first off, you need to have, I guess, opinions, right? And you can't make a statement about something you have no strong opinion of. I would say this, there are many routes to do this. I think there are a lot of ways you can achieve this. My way, when I think about it, is I want to be the best in my skill so that I can have the freedom to draw and paint whatever I want. But on the other hand, if you're gonna, practice this a few decades, but you never do something that really tells your story or the story you want to tell, that's also missing the point. So I would say kind of a nice balance between the two. Make sure your skills are up to par so that you can express something that you're interested in as good as possible, as well as possible. But then don't worry about it too much, and actually think about the statement itself. Right now, I don't know what it is. Feel free to email me or maybe write more details. But I think using a lot of references is very practical, not just for how to paint something, but for the idea. So if there's an issue that bothers you, look it up, look at news stories, look at stuff like that, history, Wikipedia, whatever you can find information on, and look at what's visually shown there, right? If maybe you go on a Wikipedia page of a person, maybe there is a very impressive portrait of them. Maybe you see an interesting news article, maybe that person relates to a certain event, maybe, and you try and find connections between the two. My take on generally on art is you can't really invent something that doesn't exist somewhere in your brain. So bring it into your brain by watching a lot of references and reading about the topic that's relevant, and stuff like that. I think that's a decent way of approaching this. Let me know if you have any follow up on that. I'm That's not really the type of art that I make, so it's a little hard for me to fully give an answer for something I don't do. But I think you find the issues that bother you and the ones that really are close to heart, and you try maybe even just do a few studies of subjects relating to them. Just paint, as you see it. Don't change anything. Then with time, you'll start figuring out with the technique, with the ideas, things will connect. Okay? Does it make sense? Hey, Birrer, how are you doing? Jan says, Zbukvic published a book, Mastering Atmosphere and Mood in Watercolor. Really hard to get now. Yeah, I know. In it, he has a workflow with a clock to explain cream on damp, tea on. Yeah. I have experience with it too. Yes, it's. So basically, he says the thing, if I recall, the paper has a few stages to it of how wet it is, right? Damp, it could be wet, it could be damp, dry, and there was another one. I don't know if it was soak, like not soak, like soaking wet, maybe, or very wet. That's the paper, and then the other factor is your brush and what you have in it. And depending on the paper, you have to the paper and brush communicate. Um, I don't really treat this as a clock with 4 different levels or 5. I treat this more as like just principles. That's the way I do it personally. So I know that with wet paper, you have to come back with a bit of a stronger color for it to show, because you have to kind of um, um, you have to almost how do you say that? I forgot the word for it. 1 plus 1. Not subtract the other one. Just add. You have to add the wetness and have it in mind. I don't have good experience on it, but I'm sure at least this page or these couple of pages you can find online with the clock. I'm sure you can find it online. So I would recommend just finding the source. Yeah, I can't explain it as well as him. But yeah, I look at it more like a spectrum, not necessarily like 4 levels. That's something that's a little harder for me to see in that way. Robin, can you demonstrate this painting? I mean, you painting this one on the screen right now, or the actual longer one of the process? Let me know. I think I can. I mean, let's do a screenshot so that I remember. Actually, did a sketch of a similar painting of his. I'll do this. I don't even know how I can find this painting because he has so many, but we can try. And just a second. And this next one is really cool too. I love that. Look at the people, how he creates a sense of depth and the value of people, the people connected to the shadow under the awnings, everything together. It's so cool. Paula, thank you. I will watch it whenever you schedule it. Love the live stream. 9 a.m. Okay, yeah, I'll do my best to change it though so that it suits more people for sure. Jay and Art, can you comment Joseph's use of main, primary, and accent colors? Is it similar to how you use? I'm not sure what you mean by main, primary, and accent. So what you would say, like how the red and yellow up top is a little strong, and then you have the grays. Do you mean that kind of a thing? I'm not sure. Let me know. There are a few ways of using grays in colors. For very often you'll see more grays in the background, but if you look at this painting, all the grays are in the foreground, and the colors are a little more in the middle ground, right? So there isn't a clear-cut pattern for it. And to be honest with you, I'm still working on my specific color nuance skills. There's a lot that goes into this. I watched a demonstration by Chen Chung Wei the other day, and it was so nuanced. He knew exactly what he was doing and how much of every color he's using, and he's using a lot of semi-opaque paints to dumb down the stronger paint. Like he'll use a yellow ochre, and then he'll add to it some kind of a jaune brilliant to make it a little, to take off the edge of it, as Andy Evenson would say. So yeah, I'm not sure. Like his color usage is just super nuanced, super nuanced. I don't even know how to begin to explain. I can't really because I don't know. Thymery, how do you use negative space in your compositions? Yeah, so the way at least he does it is really looking not just on the shape you paint, but the shape it creates around it. So if you look here, the shadows under the awnings are very good looking, but also the white gaps between them are very good looking, and they make a lot of sense. And that's something to have in mind. Let me show you one more thing. Like this area, you see the white gaps here? These are all things you have to think about, like this negative space you create by painting around it. Same here. You add this shadow to the left, right? You see where I put the thing? To the left, you add this diagonal cast shadow, and then you have to really think what kind of a sharp shape it's going to create under it, right? So it's not really, it's something that you have to paint, and as you create a shape, look at what it leaves behind unpainted and think about it, right? And then develop a taste for it. It's very personal too, because he has a specific way he likes to leave these negative spaces. So you need to kind of develop a taste for it, and slowly see what works and looks good for you. One more thing I will say is you're not necessarily a slave to the what you leave behind, like the white paper. You can add negative space and improve negative space with opaque paint. If you want to improve a shape that's light, you can use an opaque paint to play around with its edges. This is why I always say don't be scared of the medium as a whole. Don't be scared of watercolor, because you can do so much with it if you're just willing to use a bit of opaque paint. You can adjust a lot of edges. You can do a lot with it. So yeah, just a couple of my thoughts. Hey Dwayne, how are you doing? Yes, okay, I'll give it a go. Robin, I'll try. I'll see if I can find a full version of it where you actually see the whole thing, and I'll try. I'll doing a video on it. Or I have it in the screenshots. I'll know. Suzala, I'm not sure I've sent you talk about Heard. He clock is online. Will be the place. I think Mark Tara Holmes gets into it too. I'm not sure, but what concept do you talk about? The actual watercolor clock? I didn't see Paul Tolwood Greaves talk about it. I did not see Mark Foley. Maybe Mark Tara Holmes. He's sounds more like it. Let me know. Clock is online all over the place. Clock is online all over the place. I'm not sure what you mean. Let me know. Sorry. Maybe I'm slow because it's been a long day. Jan says Zbukvic uses dry, damp, moist, wet paper. Okay, dry, damp. Oh, moist and wet. Okay, yeah, wet. Tea, coffee, milk, cream, butter. Yes. It's pretty easy to know your paint, but I think it's really hard to know exact paper wetness. It's actually not that hard, Jan. You just have to, rotate it into the light. So let me try and help with that. So let's see, dry, damp, moist, wet. Yeah, I remember. So wet paper is wet. As soon as you put the paint, it's wet. If you tilt it, it's just shine all over it. Now, once the shine some of the shine is lost, but shortly after it's lost. Shortly, I mean like 10 seconds, then it would be moist. It's still bright, but it's more matte. It's not gloss, and I think that's a good way of seeing it. Wet would be more glossy, and then as soon as it turns moist, it becomes matte. It's still shiny, but it's matte shine. Damp is tricky. I know the way he explains damp, I don't know if I like it as much, because it's like that moment where you put the very strong darks and they just spread out a little, and it's very hard to gauge when that's at. It's very, very hard. And dry is just dry. Yeah, and Jan, just if you, I'll try making a proper video on like levels of wetness for the paper. I do have something similar, but not quite. I'll try to address this in more detail, and I'm trying to show sometimes the paper just to communicate to you how wet or dry it is. I get it why it's a challenge. Yeah, for sure. Dusan Dukaric, so much says Dusan Dukaric has a similar loose style with a lot of wet and wet. Are you familiar with his work? Yes, I also did a painting masters episode on Dusan, so you may want to check that out. He's like, there are a lot of Zbukvic imitations. He's like so good. He's as good as him probably. I just wonder if Dusan learned from him or they developed in the same kind of from the same influences. You know what I mean? Because they're very similar. Joe Redmond says, just want to say thanks for all the great videos. Thank you so much. Patricia, I'm in class right now with Rick. Oh, Rick Sorowitz, he's so good. He describes the various levels of wetness. That's really cool. Wait, right now, are you in class? Are you typing from the class? Yeah, he's incredible. Rick Sorowitz. Yeah, I've been following for a while. I believe on Instagram. Yeah, he's so good. Super realistic. Saturated. Paper appears glossy, shiny. Water sits on top. Damp. Light sheen, but not shiny. And dry. Yeah, so if you look at it at 3 levels, from my experience, damp is still matte. Let's say wet to damp or moist is still matte. Usually it turns completely like flat dark once it's dry, but I don't know. It's it's weird. And this thing also depends on weather. Some weathers just keep the paint wet for longer. Suzala says, no, sorry, someone was asking where to find the clock. It's all over the web. Oh, okay, wait. Yes. I'd love to see you talk about Paul Talbot, Greaves, and Mark Foley. Okay, I will. Yeah. So for both of them, it's very hard to find a process. And I did do painting masters on Mark Foley. I actually don't remember if I did one on Paul Talbot. I think I did. I have. Yeah, I did one. I just forgot because of the interview. But yeah, I can definitely do that. If I find a video, maybe I'll do a Qian Chungwei because he has a lot of videos too. Jan says, thanks, Liron. This was really helpful. Would love to see in-depth video on degrees of wet and wet. Yeah, okay. I will do that. We'll definitely do that. So yeah, I think, let's see what else they're showing, and then we can move towards wrapping this one up. A bit of a shorter one. My fault. Look at this dude. Look at the level of superstardom. I love Joseph Z. He's just a phenomenon. And wait till we look at Alvaro Castanet. He's a whole different level of stardom. But yeah, these people they've worked so hard to hone their skills, and they've developed in such a vacuum, and in such, it's a different world, fewer influences. It's not as you can just go online, find bazillion inspirations. And this is why I always say the inspiration isolation cycle. Sometimes I personally know I can feel overwhelmed if I look at too many paintings by other people. So cut yourself some slack. Take a break sometimes. Just make your own art. Make your own artwork. Make your own artwork and make your own art work for itself. You don't have to compare yourself to others. You don't have to try and imitate others. You do a few studies just to get the technique going, but then just paint and see what happens. That's the number one tip he gives. Just his book, which he's like, just paint. You have a lot of distractions, and at his level, you definitely have a lot of distractions. Art shows and galleries and videos and whatever he's doing, all of these activities. He says it's just what do you call that? Distractions, time wasters, in a way. Heather says, I just had class with Dylan Pierce. He describes the wetness in terms of minutes wet. It's hard to understand at first, but I got I got it now, and I know it's difficult to put into words. Interesting. Dylan Pierce. I don't even know if I'm familiar with Dylan Pierce. Watercolor. Now let's see. Okay. No, I'm not familiar with Dylan, but very interesting. Very, very interesting. Oops, sorry about that. That's the clock. It's food time for Ruth, but she already ate. Let's see what else is in here. What do you think about the equestrian watercolors? You know, I'm not a huge fan of the subject. I mean, he's doing it awesome, but I'm just not one or two of his I really like, but overall, I'm not a big fan of this subject in particular. Chris, thank you, Liron. I enjoyed this time. Thank you so much. This time, okay, like this time, this hour. I'll try and you know, sometimes I can do it. Sometimes this time, not being late though. The you know, the previously decided time. Patricia, a video showing the various levels of wetness and how watercolor reacts when. Okay, I'll do that. That seems to be like a very common request, and I don't have something just on that. Heather says, Liron, thank you for being such a compassionate teacher. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for being here. John, this was a different kind of React video, more painting masters, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely. Let me know, John. Would you want something different? You can also email me, of course. Did you imagine this to be different, this reaction video? Let me know if you had something different in mind. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's fun to see someone at their, I guess, at their top of their game, in their prime, because he's really something. You know, everything is so smart and experienced, and lots of careful planning. Look at all of these photos he has. That's really neat. But yeah, in any case, thank you so much for watching. We're coming up on an hour. I think it's a good time to stop this one. Again, sorry for being late. Usually, you know, I'm late just a minute or two. Today was a little different. Thai Murray, I don't stretch my watercolor paper. Maybe I should give it a try, but I don't generally. Daiji, I came in late, but I'm glad I caught you live. Love your insights on how other artists work and their style. Yeah, definitely. I'm still, you know, learning the ropes of screen sharing and showing a different screen. So, we can do something more fluid, like actually looking at a bunch of artists, not just one video. Whatever you want, and if you don't make it to the chat, write me a comment after the live stream ends, and we can kind of figure out, you know, what kind of other reaction videos we can do. But let's switch over to a nice little frame, and then I will thank you so much. Saturday's video is going to be fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Are you using blooming intentionally? If so, when and how do you? So honestly, I don't think I'm good enough to use them intentionally. Sometimes I will use them to lighten things up, but very often I won't. I'll just avoid them, and they happen usually accidentally, and I'm just kind of okay with them, to be honest with you. Thank you, Nancy, for being here. Thank you, Jan, again, and hi, Pierre. Thank you so much for dropping in. Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much. Leave again any comment of anything you want me to talk about in a future live stream, or something like a bit outside the box like this one. I would be happy to do that. If you haven't watched the original video, you can find a link there, and it's a good time to thank Graeme Stevenson for doing this, because he's just incredible. He's going all around Australia finding artists. Well, he's scheduling these sessions with them, and it's just been very helpful. He got some of the best, you know, I think that's the most watched video by Joseph Zbukvic online, like 100%. So he's really something special, and this really helps. This gave me so many things to think about. Steam, rising dust, fog rising. Yes, definitely, Marjorie. Yep, there's so much you can do. So much. So thank you to Graeme, thank you to Joseph Z for all of the inspiration, and I will talk to you again real soon, and you will see me on Saturday's video. Thank you for bearing with the new schedule. You know, just trying to devote more time to other aspects and less videos, but it looks like people are actually, you know, consuming them a little more, because fewer content to watch, but it's probably going to go up in frequency in the future, but who knows when. But in any case, thank you so much. We'll wrap it up now. Leave a like if you can to help this video reach more people, and leave a comment and all the good stuff. Subscribe if you still aren't. We'll talk to you again real soon. Super grateful for you being here. We'll talk.